Can the San Francisco 49ers spoil Aaron Rodgers' re-debut for the New York Jets? Can Dak Prescott make an early season case for a mega extension? We talk about that and so much more. The Ultimate NFL Pregame Show starts now.
It's the Ultimate NFL Pregame Show. Every team, every game, every angle. The local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network going head-to-head on every matchup. It's the Ultimate NFL Pregame Show. Unprecedented insight, unrivaled passion, and unsurpassed knowledge. It's the Ultimate NFL Pregame Show. The Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Week 1 in the NFL is here, and we've got everything you need to know heading into the weekend from the local experts across the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Ostreicher, the host of Locked On Ravens and one of the many experts on our network. Today's Ultimate NFL Pregame Show is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. Prize Picks, run your game. Week 1 of the NFL season officially here and has already kicked off with 2 games. The Ravens and Chiefs opening up the NFL action on Thursday night, and the Eagles and Packers playing in Brazil on Friday. But plenty of Sunday action to dive into, and we're going to be taking you around our network and around the league as we talk about the predictions, key matchups, and big storylines you need to know. So from the primetime game of Jets 49ers to the big 425 matchup in Cleveland, we're going to go game by game to make you the most informed fan for game day. The late window has plenty to offer for the NFL season in week 1. Very exciting matchups. Cleveland and Dallas, Los Angeles and Las Vegas. There are a ton of things to get into for this late window. We have to start off with that big matchup that is Cleveland and Dallas, as Dak Prescott obviously hopes to make an early case for a potential big mega contract extension. In Cleveland, they go as Deshaun Watson goes, and we'll see how he performs in week 1 under the 425 lights. So without any further ado, let's get into our conversation on what you need to know with Marcus Mosher of Locked On Cowboys and Jeff Lloyd of Locked On Browns.
Crossover Thursday from the Locked On Podcast Network, Locked On Browns, Locked On Cowboys, brought to you by Prize Picks. He is Marcus Mosher of Locked On Cowboys. I am Jeff Lloyd of Locked On Browns. Path to victory. Marcus, the floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, let's start on offense for the Cowboys. And I think it's going to be a lot of quick passes in this game, because the last thing you can do is let Myles Garrett ruin this game. And just a quick aside, the best 2 edge rushers in the NFL are in this game. I think everybody can appreciate that. We don't have to talk about that.
I did say that 2 episodes ago.
Well, I mean, it's also the truth, right? We don't have to talk about that other guy, because these are clearly the best 2 pass rushers, right? So don't let Myles Garrett ruin the game. I anticipate the Cowboys using a lot of slants, a lot of play action, things to try to keep that pass rush at bay. On defense for the Cowboys, it's going to be about getting pressure on Deshaun Watson without having to send more than 5 guys. And one of the things that Mike Zimmer does really well is come up with, he calls them Zim pressures, right? Where they're showing 6, but only 5 will rush and 1 will drop into coverage. With Deshaun Watson not playing at all in the preseason and missing the final however many games last year, you got to assume that there's going to be some rust, right? Can you take advantage of that? Give him different looks that maybe he's just not used to seeing. I'm going to be really curious to see if the Cowboys can find ways to disrupt the rhythm of the passing attack for the Cleveland Browns. And then one more that I wanted to mention. It's an outdoor game in week 1. I'm not sure what the status is of Dustin Hopkins, who was one of the best kickers in the NFL last year. Seems like he might be iffy to go. Is that correct still, Jeff?
He did kick 1 field goal in the final preseason game, and it seemed like him not around yesterday, it was more of maybe a travel getting back. I don't think Dustin Hopkins' family is with him in Cleveland. Go ahead.
Okay. It's going to be a big game, because I think this is going to be a close contest, right? We're not giving predictions, but I think like 20-17, 23-20, that type of game. Kicking is going to matter in this one. Brandon Aubrey was arguably the best kicker in the NFL last year. He was an all-pro. Didn't kick outdoors a ton, and that makes me a little nervous. But I also want to mention the kicking game in kickoffs, right? This is the first time where we'll be full go for an entire game. Don't boot the ball out of the end zone. Don't kick it out of bounds. Give yourself an opportunity to pin Cleveland back at the 20, 25-yard line. Keep an eye on the kickers in this game because Aubrey and Hopkins are two of the best in the NFL. And honestly, whichever one kicks better will probably win this game.
And it's funny when you bring up the special teams aspect. Look, it's as new to us guys as it's going to be to all of you. So there's not really that much more to bring up other than, kickers make your kicks. Kickers don't do silly, stupid things like cost your team 10 to 15 yards.
But that's week one, right? Like,
of course.
We're going to see probably 3 or 4 games this week decided by either a kicker missing or making a kick. When you have 2 quality opponents or quality teams like the Cowboys and the Browns, both double-digit win teams last year, a lot of times it does come down to who makes that 53-yard field goal and who doesn't.
Yep. And of course, who may give the other one, the opposition, the opportunity because of a poorly placed kickoff. For the Browns, a couple things here. Look, it is going to be this offensive line, Singleton here. And look, we're all excited. We really, really are, but we just don't know. And he's replacing one of the legends in the NFL, certainly in Bill Callahan, but we just have not seen this group collectively together with him. So it is basically, do I think they're going to be good? Sure. But I have to be able to prove that. So I have no proof to prove anything.
Jeff, real quick, I wanted to mention the Cowboys went through this with Bill Callahan. He was their offensive line coach
that's right.
in the mid-2010s. And that first year that he left, the offensive line was still pretty good. Where you saw it start to deteriorate was a couple of years after. I'm sure Cleveland's going to be the same way because nobody's as good as Bill Callahan at coaching offensive linemen. It's just how quickly does the coaching deteriorate? Is it this year? Is it next year? Or is it not at all?
Or do you just go the route of, well, what did Bill do every Tuesday, guys? Just give me
Exactly.
some input here. The other thing is, look, you have a rookie corner starting. You have a corner starting coming off of ACL. You got to attack those guys. You got to see what they got. And the other thing, and to your point where you talked about earlier with the quick passing game is nobody's really played. So a lot of the guys playing haven't tackled anybody in a long time. So that is part of the reason why you're going to go with this because there's a chance for a lot of chunk plays here in this game just because, guys, it's been a long time, and a lot of it you're going to see some ankle and this type of thing just because it's been a long time since you've got mano-a-mano trying to get a guy to the ground. And that speed, look, there is nothing that comes quicker than the game itself. So, I don't want to hear that, you had the team practices, this, that, and the other thing. When it is live on Sunday in front of everybody, it's a whole new ball game. And then the last one is for, the defense. And like we were trying the other day, and I did a bit on Juan Thornhill, and I think some people thought like I was trying to be critical. No, we were just trying to say one thing on the Browns where I thought maybe they didn't get as much out of it last year as they possibly could this year. There is a lot of potential there. And I am one of these people that truly think the Browns defense should be even better this year because not much has changed. And now there is no newness. And, now you can probably even add in a little bit more. You have 3 top corners. Jordan Hicks is a really underrated signing to go play with JOK. The guy gets 130 tackles a season. Miles, you think there's going to be a developmental path that, Alex Wright should probably, in my mind, end up being the second best defensive end on this team by the time the year is over. But either way, it is going to be a big one. And this is one of those games where I think, Marcus, and you might agree, you want to get this out of the way week 1. Because it's truly a 50-50 game. So you don't want to play this week 17 or week 18 when you really, really need the W. So, look, you get it out of the way. You know where you're at. The Browns have a relatively easy first 6 weeks of the season. You don't think they're going to go 6-0. You do have the advantage that it is in your place. So it's going to be a big one. I mean, and, you keep in mind, 4 years. I mean, the prime of COVID, Browns, Cowboys, and it was, I think, 49-38. I mean, Browns had a big lead, had no defense. They have a lot better defense now than they did in 2020, of course. But it should be a really, really good ball game. And if you all check the television map, Marcus, myself, and apparently every single red-blooded American is all going to be watching it together.
Yeah, we got Tom Brady on the call. First game that he's ever done broadcasting, which just adds even more excitement to this. I'm really excited because usually in week 1, you don't want to play like a division game or a big conference game. It's nice to play an out-of-conference game where, hey, if you lose, it's not that big of a deal. It's not the end of the world. But these are 2 really good teams. I think we're going to see how these 2 teams stack up and measure against each other early on. This is kind of what you want. Like, you want a really good test out of the gate. And if you win, great. That's a fantastic start. If you lose, again, not a big deal. This is what we need to get to in order to become a playoff team once again.
And, you'll find out a lot about each team through week 1. And, then you go back to the drawing board, and those are things that each team tries to improve on. But, I mean, you got quarterbacks, you got receivers, you got pass rushers, you name it. This game has it. Browns, Cowboys, Sunday, 4:25.
I'm expecting plenty of fireworks in that game for sure. And for more on Marcus and Jeff, be sure to check out Marcus over on Locked On Cowboys, Jeff over on Locked On Browns, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Let's take it out to the West Coast. The Los Angeles Chargers hosting the Las Vegas Raiders, an AFC West battle to start the year. The Chargers, new look. Jim Harbaugh comes in after Brandon Staley gets fired. Obviously, Justin Herbert and that Chargers offense, a big storyline. And for Las Vegas, Gardner Minshew, after the Raiders retained Antonio Pierce after a strong start to the season. We'll see how both these teams match up as they try to catch the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC West. We'll talk with your boy Q of Locked On Raiders and David Drogemeyer of Locked On Chargers to get you ready for the game now.
All right, we are back here on Crossover Thursday, and Q, we got to talk about what each team is going to have to do to win this football game and start this season off 1-0 on this Crossover Thursday, but is presented by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. So obviously, again, you guys are the away team, so we're going to start with you guys. What are going to be the three things that you think that the Raiders have to do in order to win this football game on Sunday?
You know, it's funny, man, because I think about this all the time. I mean, obviously, every week we think about, what is it going to take for the team to get the victory? But for this team, the theme all season, as far as I'm concerned, one, they've got to stay on schedule, right? And I don't think I've ever said that as as one of the keys to the game is staying on schedule. But for this team and this offense in particular, it's going to be so important. The false starts, the holding penalties, the negative plays, the taking sacks or whatever, delay of games. They had multiples of those in the preseason. That's not going to fly. This team, and I know Raider Nation doesn't like it when I say it, this team offensively is not going to be good enough to overcome that. They're just not. They have to be sound. They have to stay on schedule in this Luke Getsy offense. They have to be able to get the ball to their playmakers, but they have to have, 2nd and 5, 2nd and 6, not 3rd and 11 or 2nd and 20. And those are just going to be drive killers for this team. So they've got to make sure that they stay on schedule. And I know it's not going to happen all the time. There's going to be times where they have issues, but this team is going to struggle to overcome those issues. So staying on schedule is going to be the biggest key for this team if they want to win this game or any other game throughout the course of the season. The other big key for the Raiders and this offense to have an opportunity to thrive is for Gardner Minshew to make good decisions, right? I mean, he can't turn the ball over. He can't leave the pocket too soon. He's got to understand where the play is supposed to develop, how to get it to the playmakers, and they have plenty. I don't think Gardner Minshew in the course of his career, whether it's in Jacksonville, Philadelphia, Indianapolis, now with the Raiders, I don't think he's ever had as many playmakers as he has right now. So he has an opportunity to have a really good season, but he's got to be the best version of himself. And the thing I've been really stressing is, what are you going to be consistently? Like, I don't need you to be a 10 and then a 3 and then a 5 and then a 9 and then a 6 and then a 2. I need you to give me at least a 7, right? If you can be a 7 consistently, I think Antonio Pierce and the Raiders will take that. They'll say, you know what? That's cool, especially with they're going to have a heavy dose of the running game. Zamir White, Alexander Madison, all this is going to play a part, and that's part of the running game is part of the staying on schedule because they're definitely going to want to put a lot of Zamir White into the mix so they keep the pressure off of Gardner Minshew and what he's trying to do offensively. And then the third thing, the biggest key for the Raiders is on the other side of the ball. Defensively, they just got to stop the run. They've got to be able to stop the run. It's something they struggled with in the preseason, as I mentioned before. They've got to show that was just a vanilla defense and they weren't really working on it, and it's not scheme or personnel struggles, right? I mean, if they can't stop the run, not only are they going to struggle this week against the Chargers, but Jim Harbaugh's brother, John Harbaugh in Baltimore, is coming up week 2. They're going to want to run the rock as well. So, I mean, there's so many teams that if you see this team can't stop the run, you're going to do that. You're not going to put your quarterback in harm's way. So, 2 things offensively, stay ahead of the schedule, stay ahead of the sticks. Gardner Minshew has to be smart with the ball, and then the defense got to be able to stop the run. If they could do those 3 things consistently, feel good about it, get the defense off the field where they're not on the field all day long, they have a really good chance to win this game. And I feel like they have a chance to win a lot of games if they can stick to that recipe. It's what happens when adversity hits is going to be the biggest question. So when you look at the Raiders, that's really what I think are the biggest 3 keys for success coming up on Sunday. When you look at the Chargers, what are you looking at? What are some of the 3 keys that you're looking at for this game coming up?
Yeah, so the three keys I got for this game for the Chargers, they absolutely have to do if they want to win this football game is, first and foremost, do not let Max Crosby derail this offense because he has the ability to do so. Obviously, Joe Alt is the 5th overall pick for the Chargers, and he is going to be out of the frying pan and into the fire going up against one of the best edge rushers in the NFL. So welcome to the NFL, kid. Go try and block Max Crosby, okay? But obviously, don't leave him on an island every single snap. Go. You guys have the Chargers have one of the better blocking tight ends in the league with Will Dissly. I do expect he'll probably be on that side, providing some assistance to Joe Alt from time to time. The second thing is establish the running game. Got to run the rock. If Jim Harbaugh wants to bring that identity of physicality, then it has to be something they stick with and they are consistent. But that means that the run blockers, the offensive line, the tight ends, the wide receivers, everybody has got to be on schedule, doing their job, and being there with great timing. That's all going to be very, very important for the Chargers to establish that running game. And then the defense has to be connected, Q. The too much in the past where the Chargers defense so disjointed and allowed so many explosive plays on the ground and through the air. They can't have the broken coverages and the misassignments in the running game and the passing game. You can't give the easy completions to Gardner Minshew and the Raiders offense. Those are the three things to me that I feel like the Chargers have to do if they want to win this game on Sunday.
No, those are really good ones. I mean, really, because Max Crosby, he wrecked practice. Every practice in training camp. Like there's times they just had to take him out because he was wrecking practice, right? He wasn't allowed to get any work in. So yeah, I mean, stopping him from wrecking the game is a big key. And if that does happen, if the Chargers are successful in doing that, obviously they'll have a big focus on that. That means someone else has got to step up. I mentioned Malcolm Kuntz, Christian Wilkins, whatever. Somebody else has to step up and say, hey, if they're going to focus on him, let me go ahead and eat. You mentioned the short passing game. It's a West Coast offense led by Luke Getsy. It's about, the good timing on the passes, getting the ball out of his hands, and boom, getting the easy completions, as you mentioned, to guys like Devontae, Jacoby Myers, and others. So that'll be a big key. If you could take those away and limit them, that'll be, a good day at the office for the Chargers defense. And, the run game, again, that's going to be one of the biggest keys, I think, for both teams, right?
I agree.
Both teams really want to run the ball, have a heavy emphasis on it. It's funny. I've been talking about the Raiders need to find a way to score 24 points. I can see this game being where neither one of these teams score 24 points, that both of these teams score under 20 because it's going to be a lot of ball control, a lot of running the rock, a lot of physicality in the trenches. And, I mean, that makes for, I feel like, a good Sunday afternoon football game.
David and Q were great, and check both of them out. Q over on Locked On Raiders, David over on Locked On Chargers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for what you need to know about that exciting AFC West matchup. Now, the Commanders and Buccaneers. Jaden Daniels, the 2nd overall pick in the 2024 draft, of making his NFL debut against Antoine Winfield Jr. and that Buccaneers defense. James Yarko of Locked On Bucks, David Harrison of Locked On Commanders have everything you need to know to see if Jaden Daniels can do what he needs to do against the talented Buccaneers defense.
We are wrapping things up here on a crossover Thursday of the Locked On Bucks and Locked On Commanders. And crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase Locked On NFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. David, you are the visiting team this week. I will defer to you. What are the three things that the Commanders need to do to win this game?
Yeah, I'm gonna hit all three phases here. I'm gonna go protect Jaden Daniels, and we'll talk about this more, but that also includes Jaden Daniels, protecting Jaden Daniels. Tackle, we just kind of talked about that a little bit, but that's certainly the key. And then make your kicks. Those are the three things. So again, offense, defense, special teams, we're covering all three bases here. Jaden Daniels, that offensive line, even if the Buccaneers pass rush weaponry doesn't look as sexy on the surface and on paper as it usually does, still an NFL defensive, pass rush, still Todd Bowles and his creativity, his ability to maximize talent wherever he's got it. So you still have to be concerned there. And Jaden himself, look, the conversation has been had. Is he smart enough to not take hits, to slide, to run out of bounds, all that stuff? He is. The question isn't, is he smart enough to do it? The question is he going to do it? Because he also wants to make plays for his team. So I think you got to protect Jaden from a frontline standpoint, but also from a quarterback mindset standpoint as well. Just understand where the best decision is for your team. from a defensive standpoint, tackle. Again, we just talked about guys like Buck Ewing, Rashad White, Mike Evans. We know the yak conversation around Mike Evans, but look, if you miss tackles, anybody's going to get yak, right? Chris Godwin, Jalen McMillan, certainly a lot of capability there. So this team's got to wrap up and tackle. And I can't tell you that was exactly this team's strongest suit on defense during the preseason, but a lot of like Bobby Wagner didn't play any preseason reps. You know what I mean? So there were some other mitigating factors there that potentially could help this team get better in that aspect. And then kickers, the Commanders had to release their first kicker due to an off the field issue. But then they went through two other kickers, one that came from the UFL and all this, and one that became a free agent, and just not a good history there. Cade York comes in from the Cleveland Browns, a 7th round draft pick trade there. He made all four of his kicks with Cleveland in the preseason. He made all four of his kicks with Washington in the preseason. So that's a much better improvement over what they had been dealing with. So maybe fourth time is the charm for the Washington Commanders. But if you're going to get into field goal range, you need to convert those field goal opportunities into points, because nothing puts a rookie quarterback under pressure faster than a deficit. And if the Buccaneers put up some points, which we do expect the Bucs are going to score, right? And then you're missing out on your scoring opportunities, that's only going to put Jaden Daniels under the gun more, which then trickle-down economics, or wraparound economics, I guess, wraps us right back to the most important thing on this list. So I think all those three things are going to play a hand in what happens in this game. And if the Commanders do those three things, then they have a chance to pull off the upset.
Yeah, this is not the Commanders team, again, that drafted number 2 overall in this past draft. This is a completely new look. This is a completely different franchise. So the Bucs are not guaranteed anything in this. This is not going to be an easy game. This is not going to be a walk in the park. Jane Daniels is going to cause problems. That defensive front is going to cause problems. Bucs fans are hoping that they miss some tackles, let Jalen get into space and make some plays. But yeah, this is going to be a tough spot for the Buccaneers. So what do they need to do to get a win? Well, first you got to contain Jaden Daniels. You have to attack a very weak secondary, or a perceived weak secondary, and then keep Baker's jersey white. Bucs are wearing white jerseys, white pants, making Commanders play in that Florida Heat in those dark uniforms. But look, it all starts with Todd Bowles being able to put the right scheme together to contain a dual threat like Daniels. Is he going to focus a lot on, his edge rushers really just keeping contained, keeping that pocket, up the side, so that Vita Vea and Kalijah Casey can collapse the middle and open things up for some blitzers? Is he going to disguise a lot of these blitzes? They kept 11 defensive backs on this roster, all of them. Every single one of them are versatile players. You can blitz Antoine Winfield Jr. You can blitz Jordan Whitehead. You can blitz Tyke Smith and Christian Izien and Zion McCollum out of the slot. You can blitz all these guys. You still have Levante David. He's not quite as dynamic as Devin White was, but he can still get after the quarterback in his own right. Are you going to set up a lot of this to confuse Daniels and get after him early, get that internal clock in his first NFL game sped up a little bit so he starts making some mistakes with all of these disguises? Are you going to just spy him? Is that the solution? Harken back to Derek Brooks versus Michael Vick. Those kinds of situations. Is it going to be a committee? Is KJ Britt going to be the spy? Levante, you could have Anthony do it. You have a wealth of weapons on the defensive side of the ball. It's about putting those chess pieces in the right spot to make a rookie quarterback very uncomfortable in his first game. And then that secondary, we know Mike is going to be Mike. Jalen McMillan is going to be an absolute stud. I'm looking at Chris Godwin in his return to the slot. You know how dangerous that is. Yeah. Think of Cooper Kupp circa 2021. That's the role envisioned by Liam Cohen for Chris Godwin, because there aren't very many, if any, teams that can match up with Chris Godwin in the slot and actually be close to being as good as he is. He's finally fully healthy. This is going to be, a big opportunity for them. And then keep Baker's jersey white. That defensive front for Washington is fantastic. You have a rookie center You have a new left guard. You have a second-year right guard. You may have the best left tackle in football. You may have an emerging right tackle, but that interior was a problem for the Buccaneers last year. They need to have gelled. They need to be ready to face one of the most difficult defensive fronts that they are going to face all season long right out of the gate. They are in for a fight. Baker has to be upright so that he can attack that weak secondary and really start to rack up those points.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think, like you said, if the Bucs do those things, they certainly should. They're favored in this matchup for a reason. And if they do those three things, then you would assume that they're going to come out with a victory. Of course, as everybody knows, this time of year in Tampa, the weather is probably going to make an appearance in some way, shape, or form. I'm hoping there is not a delay. Although, if there is a delay, I can go across to the Bucs, because this is going to be my first time in Raymond James on the away side of the press box. It's going to be weird. I have a feeling, I'm going to, those of you who have seen me in person know that I like to eat. I have a feeling I'm going to get to the stairs to go down the press box and make the wrong, turn left to go towards the home side of the press box. At least once I'm going to do it, and then have to be like, oh yeah, my bad. I'm over here with the strangers this time. But you know what? So a little bit of a rain delay wouldn't be terrible for me. I can go say hi to some people I haven't seen in a while and do all those things. So it's gonna be super cool. But there's a lot of factors in here. Obviously, it's football, right? So you can't whittle it down to just one thing. But yeah, I think those three things give the Bucs the best chance to pull off the favored victory. But at the same time, on the other side of the ball, man, I'm telling you, Jaden Daniels, brother, he is another animal. I made the comparison that I think if Jaden Daniels' house was on fire, which knock on wood it never is, I think he would walk out of it. I don't think he would run. I think he would walk, and somehow he would still grab all of his valuables, but he would walk out the house and be like, "Man, house is on fire!" Like, that dude just does not shake. And I actually pitched that analogy to his mother once, and she started laughing. She's like, "That's it." She's like, that's exactly Jaden. I will make a bold prediction. I know it's not part of the program, but I will make a bold prediction. So we did a little bit of talking about Todd Bowles against rookie quarterbacks. The most rushing yards a rookie quarterback has gotten against a Todd Bowles defense is 38 yards since he's arrived at Tampa, I should say. 38 yards. My bold prediction for you here, James Yarko, Jaden Daniels will eclipse that on one carry. I don't know if it's a first carry, but he will have a carry. It could be a scramble. He will have one rush in the game that will eclipse 38 yards. That's a spicy Cheeto bold prediction for every day, as you remember our categories of bold predictions.
All right, well, then I'll throw out a bold prediction of my own. Jaden Daniels' first career turnover is going to go into the hands of Zion McCollum, who you predicted on Locked On Bucs every week last year was going to get his first career takeaway. It's happening in week one. And Zion's going to pick off Jaden Daniels. All right.
If he does, I'm going to give him a press box high five. I'm just going to be like, high five in the glass. So we'll have to make sure he knows that I'm doing that for him.
Yeah. I mean, the man bought a jugs machine and then taught his brand new bride how to operate it so that he could work on his hands.
It's about that business.
You got to love the dedication.
David and James work great together. And for more on David, be sure to check him out over at Locked On Commanders. More on James, check him out over on Locked On Buccaneers, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. One more late window game to go, but then we have the prime time games coming up here on the Ultimate NFL pregame show, so be sure to stay tuned for that. A ton of exciting prime time action coming your way. But let's get into the final game, Broncos-Seahawks. The Broncos draft Bo Nix as their hopeful quarterback of the future, another year under Sean Payton. And for the Seattle Seahawks, Mike McDonald comes in from Baltimore to take over a team with Geno Smith at the helm. We'll talk with Sarah Bedinger of Locked On Broncos, Corbin Smith of Locked On Seahawks. What do they have to say about the state of this game?
Welcome back to the first Crossover Thursday edition of the 2024 season. I'm Corbin Smith of Locked On Seahawks. Glad to be joined by Sarah Bedinger of Locked On Broncos. A special thanks to all the 12s and Broncos fans out there for making Locked On Seahawks and Locked On Broncos your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. Crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks, the easiest, most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedInNFL and use the code, all lowercase, LockedInNFL, to win $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. Prize Picks, run your game. Seahawks and Broncos, week one, former AFC West rivals battling at Lumen Field, both looking to get off to fast starts. And obviously, as you mentioned earlier, Sarah, a lot of newness for both teams, different degrees of newness. Obviously, the quarterback situation in Denver, the new coaching staff in Seattle. First time Pete Carroll isn't on the sideline since way back in 2009. So there's plenty of big changes for both these teams going into a game that creates a lot of uncertainty in week one, more so than there already is. Week one is always kind of a wild card when it comes to what you're going to see of the preseason, how limited the starters typically are for teams in the league. Now, let's get to the most important things for both teams to accomplish to win this football game. And we'll start with the visiting Denver Broncos. And Sarah, you mentioned all the newness, particularly with Bo Nix. First NFL regular season start. He gets to go to one of the loudest venues in the NFL. Not an easy test, but when you look at this game from a Broncos perspective, what are the three most important things that are jumping out to you that Denver has to accomplish to get out of Lumen Field with a season opening win?
Well, I think number one, you want to see Bo Nix get into rhythm and keeping him in rhythm, especially when they're, mixing the run in the pass game. Number two, you want to see the Broncos defensive front putting pressure on Geno Smith early and often. And number three, seeing this young secondary stepping up, which against this Seattle Seahawks wide receiver group, that could end up being one of the most key matchups of the game, because we know Pat Surtain, he can hold down his side of the field. But on the other side, the Broncos do have some question marks. It could be Riley Moss, a second-year player out of Iowa, out there at the cornerback position. It could be the veteran Levi Wallace getting some more playing time this week as the Broncos kind of try to acclimate Riley Moss into the mix, because he hasn't played outside corner at this point yet in the NFL, aside from a couple of preseason games. So that to me is one of those situations to where we know the Seahawks have guys who can make plays at wide receiver and they can spread the ball around. Do the Broncos have the guys that can keep up with them in coverage, especially because of their youth back there, not only at corner, but at the safety position, where PJ Locke taking on a full-time starting role this coming season after kind of having a breakout year last year for the Broncos, and Brandon Jones coming in free agency from the Dolphins. A lot of Broncos fans concerned about Brandon because he was injured in OTAs. He was hurt throughout training camp in the preseason. We have not yet seen Brandon Jones play a game as a member of the Denver Broncos. So this week one, assuming he plays, this will be the first time we all see number 22 out there. And so it's going to be a very interesting sort of experience for everybody in real time to kind of figure out what is Vance Joseph's new look secondary going to be able to do against maybe what could be their biggest test of the season in terms of Seattle's personnel.
The Broncos want Bo Nix to get comfortable. They want him to get in a rhythm. The Seahawks want to do the exact opposite in this game. They want the crowd noise to get to the rookie. They want the pass rush to get after him. But to me, most importantly, put everything on Bo Nix's shoulders. Don't let the Broncos get their run game going with Javonte Williams and company, because that is the best way to come into Lumen. And Seattle's run defense has been god-awful the last 2 years. They've been 30th and 31st in the NFL the last two seasons. Mike McDonald's hoping to immediately come in and remedy that issue. And so far, the returns have been promising. But you've got to limit the run game and put everything on Bo Nix's plate. To me, that's the first key for the Seahawks in this game. Force Bo Nix to beat you in his NFL regular season debut. If he ends up doing it, then more power to him. But force the young quarterback to have to shoulder the load and beat you. And then on the offensive side of the football, it's going to seem very elementary, but you got to keep Geno Smith upright in this game. You mentioned the talent that the Broncos have on their defensive line. That is probably my biggest concern on either side of the football coming in this game, because Seattle doesn't have Abraham Lucas back yet from his knee injury. We don't know if Connor Williams is going to be available to play in this game coming off the torn ACL. Signs are trending towards him being available, but there are a lot of question marks still on that offensive line. It isn't going to matter if Jackson Smith and Jigba is ready for a breakout year, or Tyler Lockett still can get it done, or DK Metcalf is poised to go for a team record of receiving yards. None of that matters if Geno Smith does not have time to throw the football. And so that is going to be a big question here, because if he has time, if the Seahawks offensive line is able to protect him, he's able to stay upright. As you mentioned, I do think if there's an area the Seahawks have a big advantage, even against Pat Surtain, DK Metcalf had success against him a couple years ago. That is one of the few receivers that creates a little bit of a matchup issue for Pat Surtain. And the rest of the secondary's got a lot of question marks. Seattle does not have question marks at receiver. They are loaded there. Even their number 4 and 5 receivers, Jake Bobo and Laviska Shenault, are really good football players. They've got a lot of weapons, but Geno Smith's got to have time to throw. If they give him that time with the home crowd behind him, I think Seattle has a chance to put a lot of points on the board, but that is a big question mark. Are they going to be able to do that? And then at home, you got to win the turnover battle, especially when you're playing a rookie quarterback making his NFL regular season debut. It's elementary, but you got to win the turnover battle. This is a defense that Mike McDonald in Baltimore orchestrated that created a lot of havoc with their pre and post snap changes, with the complexity of the defense, the blitzes and the sim packages, all different levels of the defense. They're looking to create turnovers. And that was something the Baltimore Ravens were as good as anybody at the last couple of years. So the Seahawks going to be able to pick that up with some of the talented players they have up front. And in the secondary, this will be a little bit of a litmus test going against a rookie quarterback and an offense that's got some question marks with some of the pieces they're trying to implement. So can you win the turnover battle? I think if they win the turnover battle in this game, their chances of winning go up exponentially, because I do feel like the Seahawks have a little bit more continuity and a little more proven experience at a number of positions. But again, it boils down to O-line protection. And are you going to be able to get some of those turnovers to get some quick changes, get the ball back into Geno Smith's hands and try to get some points on the scoreboard quickly? Looking at this game from a FanDuel perspective with our betting lines, the Seahawks coming in at 5.5-point favorites at home. Over-under's a little on the lower side at 41.5. I'm not really that surprised by that, Sarah, because we are going into a game with a rookie quarterback making his first start in Denver, so there's some question marks there. And even with Seattle, with all the talent that they've got, you've got a new offensive coordinator, and so nobody really knows what to expect in the regular season. So I'm not surprised it's on a little lower end in terms of over-under. But from a prediction standpoint, we'll dive into scores on our Friday shows, respectively, on Locked On Seahawks and the Locked On Broncos. But 5.5 points, underdogs. Do you see the Broncos covering that, or do you see this being a game where that 5.5 ends up being difficult for them to cover?
I do think they can cover that. I think this Broncos team is going to be better than a lot of people expect. We're used to hearing the number 5.5 from FanDuel this offseason, as that's the Broncos win total projection as well. So I've been smashing the over on 5.5 all offseason long, and I'm just glad the over under is not set at 50.5, because 43 and 8, those two numbers combined together, that still inflicts a little bit of terror in the hearts of Broncos country there. But I do think the Broncos can cover 5.5 points. I think they're going to be a better team overall than is expected this year. That doesn't mean they're not going to get their butts kicked every now and again, but I think they're going to be able to hang in this game, and we'll see what happens in terms of win-loss. But I think they are going to be playing everybody tight this season.
There is not a game on the schedule that's more unpredictable than week one, and that's just for all 32 teams. You just don't know what to expect. And I look at this game. Look, I have really high expectations for what this Broncos team could become down the line. And I think in week one, you never know what you're going to get. So 5.5, that might be a little bit rich for me right now for the Seahawks, even playing at home, because there is a lot of newness for both these teams. So I don't have them covering that. Now, does that mean I have them winning or losing? You'll have to listen to tomorrow's episode to find out. But I expect that this is going to be a tight game. I think the Denver Broncos have more talent than people are giving them credit for. In fact, I could see Denver, if things fall right, being the second best team in the AFC West, because I think the Chargers have questions. The Raiders certainly have questions. So I could see this being a team, if everything falls right for Sean Payton, that ends up being much better than advertised. Not saying it's a playoff team, but certainly could be a team that rises up the division standings and starts to pave a brighter future moving forward after the last couple of years just didn't play out as planned. But I do think this is going to be a very close game, and I expect it's going to be back and forth. Week one is crazy as it is.
Broncos and Seahawks in a Super Bowl rematch of that game that feels like all those years ago, but really wasn't that long ago in terms of time. But for more on Corbin, more on Sarah, check them out over at Locked On Seahawks, Locked On Broncos, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It's time for prime time, and we go out to Detroit to kick it off for Sunday Night Football. Detroit fell short to San Francisco in the NFC Championship game last season with a trip to the Super Bowl on the line, and they'll be trying to hold off the Los Angeles Rams, a bit of a homecoming for Matthew Stafford as he was that longtime quarterback in Detroit. So Travis Rogers of Locked On Rams, Matt Derry of Locked On Lions have everything you need to know about the Matthew Stafford reunion.
Matt Derry, Locked On Lions, Travis Rogers, Locked On Rams. We'll crossover here on a Thursday. All right, Travis, what's it going to take for the Rams to win? What are some keys? What are some things you see that could get an LAW?
I think they're going to have to get pressure on Jared Goff somehow, some way that doesn't include Aaron Donald. This is something that I've been, everydayers that listen to Locked On Rams will hear me say this over and over and over again. It's exciting in one sense to see a defense without Aaron Donald for the first time in 10 years, that he's been such a mainstay. He's been so good. But it's also terrifying to know that you're going into a new season without, never mind the best defensive player in the history of your team, maybe the greatest player in the history of your team. So, and the leadership that he brought, I think it's really interesting to see what it might look like with his absence, and not just from does he get to the quarterback? Does he fill his gap? It's a lot more than just that. I think that's one part of it. The other part, and this is super basic, but I believe that it's true. It's, something that the play-by-play voice of the Rams, JB Long, always says. It's that CQI. It's the coach quarterback injury. And they have the coach. We know that Sean McVay knows what he's doing. We know that Matthew Stafford knows what he's doing. The question is, does the injuries that the Rams have had, especially on the offensive line, put pressure on Matthew Stafford, allow him not to make good decisions, allow him have to make quick decisions? Can they not run the ball? Can they not keep it Detroit honest as far as defending both the run and the pass? I think those are the two big things for me. And then, of course, we talked about it briefly a second ago. Can they kick field goals? And I'm not talking, can you kick 55-yard field goals? I'm talking, can you kick 42-yard field goals? Can you feel good about kicking something less than 45 yards and feel like you have 3 points in your back pocket? I think it changes the way Sean McVay calls plays. I think it changes the way the end of the game gets managed potentially, and whether or not they feel good with him. I think we're going to get a pretty good look at it early. I think those are the three keys for me.
Yeah, I love the pressure thing. I think the fans, look, that first home playoff game, the first time since '93 that Lions fans got to be in their own building for a playoff game, it's hard to replicate that. I mean, these fans are hungry. It will be loud. Don't get me wrong. But that stadium and that vitriol for Stafford and just everything that went into last year was unbelievable. And I don't know if the Lion fans can do that. Now, they're going to be loud. And I think a big key is stay loud. Jonah Jackson, shotgun snaps with noise, hasn't played center in the NFL in college. I think that can be a big advantage to the Lions. A couple of low snaps can throw everything off. So I think crowd is going to be a factor that will help the Lions. Like you said, attacking and getting pressure on Goff. Same with the Lions. Who's that opposite edge? Is it James Houston? Is it Marcus Davenport? Josh Pascal? Who's going to Derek Barnes? Who's going to get off the edge? Tackle a little bit shaky for the Rams right now. I think that's a definite key. And again, like you said, Jake Bates, can he make these kicks? Last year's game was close. Maher did his job for the most part for the Rams, and of course Badgley for the Lions. But I think with offenses that have not worked a ton here in August and September, and guys are going to be rusty. I see this maybe coming down to the kicking game. And is Jake Bates that guy for the Lions? I think we're kind of lockstep on a couple of these keys, Travis.
Yeah, it's funny. It's does your offensive line protect your quarterback? Does your quarterback make good decisions? And does your kicker make the kicks that they're supposed to make?
Right. That's pretty wild.
That's basically what it is, right?
Well, but there won't be any center snap problems, I don't think, with Frank Ragnow. This is
no, I wouldn't think so. I wouldn't think so. I do like the Rams and Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford in particular, that even in a loud environment, like you mentioned, last year in Detroit, I was talking with my co-host DeMarco Farr, he does sidelines for the Rams radio broadcast. And he played in the NFL for a long time. He's a Super Bowl champion. He played in 3 Rose Bowls as a member of the Washington Huskies. So he knows big venues with big moments. Said he'd never heard anything like he heard in that game in Detroit. So that they've been in that environment, that those guys have been through big moments before, I think, hopefully, if I'm being optimistic, will serve them well.
So you see the Ram. You going to pick the Rams? What do you think?
My heart picks the Rams. My head tells me on the road against a very good team, and the Rams are breaking in a lot of new players on defense. They've got a makeshift offensive line. My brain is telling me that I think that the Lions have a pretty distinct advantage in this particular game. I never underestimate Sean McVay. I never underestimate Matthew Stafford. So I think the Rams will keep it close. I do not think that they are going to get stomped. I don't think that happens very often in the McVay era. But I just don't know if they have enough horsepower right now to beat that team in their own backyard. I think that the Lions win it by a field goal or less.
Yeah, FanDuel has it at 3.5 right now for the Lions. Last year's game finished 24-23. I see it 23-21. I see the Rams sticking around. Like you said, Stafford making plays in that building, a building that he was beloved in for years, 10 plus years. And I do think the Lions will win. But I do, like I said before, I see some stretches where there's just rust offensively and trying to get this thing going. But, keep an eye too on Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. I think those guys are really good. And if they can run the football, keep Stafford and that McVay offense off the field, I like the Lions as well.
Plenty of intriguing storylines in that game, but the big one, that Matthew Stafford one is one that absolutely needs to be watched over the entire course of the game. But Travis and Matt do a great job. Check out Travis over on Locked On Rams, Matt over on Locked On Lions, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Wrapping up week 1, 49ers Jets. It's the re-debut of Aaron Rodgers after tearing his Achilles just a couple plays into his Jets debut last season. He suits up as the Jets quarterback once again, going up against the NFC champions at their home stadium in San Francisco. Brock Purdy hoping to make another great starting impression. San Francisco just re-signed Brandon Ayuk. There are plenty of spicy storylines to get into in Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker of Locked On 49ers, as well as John Butchko of Locked On Jets. Gets you ready for the game.
Locked On crossover episode 49ers and Jets, brought to you by Prize Picks. Guys, this is it. What has to happen for the Jets to win? What has to happen for the 49ers to win? We've got 3 keys here, 3 must-dos. John, we're going with the away team first. What are the 3 must-dos for the Jets to win against the 49ers Monday?
My number 1 is something we actually talked about a little earlier on the show. Jets need to tackle effectively. And, you could probably say that about every team in every game, but I think there are a couple of components here that make it especially important for the Jets. First of all, you look at the caliber of playmaker the 49ers have on offense. They have a bunch of guys who are tough to bring down. Guys who can make plays with the ball in their hands. And you have that element where the Jets have an excellent defense. This is going to be a top 5 defense if everybody stays healthy. But these guys did not get preseason reps, and you always wonder week 1. You see it across the league. It's not not just a Jets thing. You see it across the league that sometimes teams struggle because their guys haven't really practiced tackling yet. So that for me, that's number 1. Number 2, protect Aaron Rodgers. 49ers have a lot of good pieces on the defensive side of the ball, especially pass rushers, as we talked about. They have the guy that actually, put the hit on Aaron Rodgers that injured him last year. Jets have an offensive line that looks good on paper, but it's a new offensive line. Sometimes it takes some chemistry for the pieces to come together. Jets have 3 new starters up front this year. In fact, they have 4 new starters from week 1 last year. Joe Tippmann, in his second year, he was a second-round pick last year, was not a starter at the beginning of last year, took over the starting role during the season. Rodgers, as I mentioned, I think especially in the early part of the season, he's probably not going to be as mobile as he's been in the past. I think if the Jets protect him, they can exploit, especially some of the potential issues the 49ers may have at the safety position. Jets actually have a quarterback who can exploit issues for once, which is a refreshing change of pace for this team because Jets have struggled at the quarterback position quite a bit. And the third thing I'm going to say is, and part of this is because it's in my memory from week 1 last year, but win the special teams battle. These are 2 very talented teams, and I think sometimes we forget about the third phase of the game, the impact that can make. A year ago, as I mentioned, Jets were playing Monday Night Football week 1 against a top flight opponent, the Buffalo Bills. They won that game on a punt return touchdown in overtime by Xavier Gibson. So I think, especially when you have 2 teams that at least on paper look evenly matched, sometimes a big play on special teams or 2 can swing the game.
It's a good point with the special teams because we still don't know how teams are going to employ once things really matter in the regular season, the new kickoff rules. So could that really start to mix things up in week one? Do you have a good idea of what the Jets are going to do?
Well, so one of the things that's interesting is Robert Saleh said that he likes the fact that they're playing Monday night because they're going to be able to watch the Sunday games and see how teams address it.
Yeah.
So I don't think the Jets know what they're doing. I think the Jets may figure this out Monday morning.
I mean, there's a lot of great matchups in this, and none more so than the coaches, right? The former defensive coordinator for Kyle Shanahan is the head coach of the New York Jets, and these teams operate very similarly. They have similar schemes on offense and defense. They are both teams that want to run the ball, have a dynamic dual threat running backs. They have two of the best defenses in the NFL, and Croc, they both have future Hall of Fame quarterbacks. So that's really interesting that these two teams are matched up on Monday Night Football. But for real, there is a Hall of Fame quarterback on one side, and we'll see about Brock Purdy's future. Don't want to put too much on the young man too soon. Get after Aaron Rodgers, right? Don't make life easy because he's not the type of guy who's going to turn the ball over a lot. You mentioned turnovers already, and it's one of our keys here for the San Francisco 49ers. That goes for both sides. You don't want to turn the ball over, but you want to force potentially maybe a rusty Aaron Rodgers into mistakes, but he's not really a guy that makes a lot of mistakes. So do you want to chase him around, Croc? Do you want to make him move on his bad wheel, or do you want to keep him in the pocket and pressure him from there and try to get him in some third and longs?
Well, I think John, he talked about how Aaron Rodgers at this point in his career may not want to move around a whole lot. If I'm the 49ers, I still kind of want him to play from the pocket because when Aaron Rodgers does get on the move, if he's still capable of doing that, those are when the back-breaking plays from him happen. And they just cause teams to get, really frustrated. I know how it is to be out there 3rd and 6. You feel like you have everything locked down. Then the quarterback either takes off or gets out on the move, extends the play, and picks up a first down with either his legs or dumping off to someone in space. So that's extremely difficult. It'll be even more difficult for a 49ers team who likes to play a lot of off-man coverage. Are the 49ers going to squeeze these windows to make Aaron Rodgers maybe take a little bit longer to diagnose what's going on and eventually throw the ball? Those are things I'll be looking for. But I think making him play from the pocket maybe gives the 49ers a little bit better of a chance because, all right, playing from the pocket, does he start to get a little finicky? Do you get a few hits on him? What does that end up looking like? It's always going to be tough against a guy like Aaron Rodgers because he's seen everything. He's seen every look that you could throw at him. But I think for the 49ers, that's one of the main things that they have to do.
And that leads into our other must-do, Croc, which was limit explosive plays, right? And the number one thing for limiting explosive plays is getting to the quarterback quickly.
Well, you have Garrett Wilson out there. I mean, this is a tremendous young receiver. He's really good at stretching the field, being able to make plays at every single level. They got Mike Williams in there. We'll see. John talked about them bringing Mike Williams along a little bit slower. But one thing that Mike Williams can do, even if he's in there for 10 plays, and 10 of those plays, they have him going deep, he is a tremendous contested catch guy vertically down the field. That's something that you have to keep an eye on, especially with the 49ers. You don't have a lot of big guys. You do have Travarius Ward. He has decent length, but when you look at the other guy, right, Diamador Lenore, tremendous defensive back, tremendous corner. All right, but if he's on the outside, matched up with 6'3", 6'4", Mike Williams, I think the advantage might kind of go to Mike Williams in a jump ball situation. And Aaron Rodgers, we talked about maybe lack of being able to move or make a whole lot of plays on the move. One thing he doesn't lack is ball placement. I mean, and this guy, when he throws the ball, I feel like he puts it wherever he is trying to put it. And not all quarterbacks can say that. I think Aaron Rodgers is probably one of the best in the history of the NFL at doing just that. So he'll make it tough, especially if you have those big guys out there. You have to be able to limit the explosive plays.
This is usually the part of the crossover episode where we do some predictions, and I don't know how things are going to go in week one. I don't think it's going to ruin either the 49ers or the Jets seasons if they don't get a victory in week one. But I want to go to a prediction a little further down the road, John. Is this potentially a Super Bowl preview with the New York Jets and the San Francisco 49ers in week one?
I've been burned so many times by the Jets in the past. So you learn as a Jets fan not to like let your guard down. But I think this Jets team could be really good this year. I think they already have the defense. Now you're bringing Rodgers back into the mix. And last year Jets had a lot of Super Bowl talk, but heading into the season, I think there was some skepticism about it because they did not have the offensive line that that you need to have a championship team. This year they brought in Tyron Smith. They also traded for Morgan Moses from Baltimore. So I feel a lot more confident about the offensive line this year. And look, the 49ers, the 49ers have played in the NFC Championship game at least every single year. So I think the 49ers clearly are the team to beat in the NFC. I think this definitely could be a Super Bowl preview.
Well, we know the 49ers are going to get there. We just need the Jets to handle their business and meet the 49ers in New Orleans. I believe the Super Bowl's in New Orleans this year, Super Bowl 59 in February. So maybe this is just a preview, and we'll be talking to you in about 6 months here, John, about another matchup between the 49ers and Jets. Wouldn't that be something? That would be.
Well, I used to say this when Adam Gase was here. I used to say it and it was a joke, and it's so different now that it actually could happen.
Well, look, if you could just go from maybe the worst quarterback play in the league to Hall of Fame level quarterback play, it's a pretty big difference.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's great analysis.
It might help you get there. I do want to see Aaron Rodgers stay healthy because I think this is a really interesting New York Jets team. And I actually picked them last year before the season to be against the 49ers I didn't even pick the Niners to get there. I did pick the Jets to get there. I got burned by the Jets, and I'm not even a Jets fan. So I know how Jets fans feel now. So I'm not going to try to hype these two teams too much. But
you got a taste of the heartbreak of being a Jets fan.
Yeah, exactly. I can appreciate it now. All right.
If the 49ers continue to look at Patrick Mahomes as the boogeyman, if there's anyone cocky enough to feel like they can go in there and just take down Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, I feel like it's Aaron Rodgers. So, we talked about keeping him in the pocket and whatnot. Man, just keep this guy healthy. Hopefully he plays the entire season so he can do a little heavy lifting for the 49ers.
Week 1 is going to have a lot of great action, but I think the game I'm most excited for has to be this Monday night game between the Jets and the 49ers. I think there's just so much to look out for. And for more on that game, more on that matchup, and more on the Jets and the 49ers, check out John Butchko over at Locked On Jets, Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker over on Locked On 49ers, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. That'll do it for us here on the Ultimate NFL Pregame Show. Week 1 will be coming at you every single week with our local experts on the Locked On Podcast Network as they give you the insights, the information, and everything you need to know heading into weeks of this football season. So be sure to stay tuned for what we have in store here. I'm Kevin Ostreicher, and we'll see you right back here soon on the Ultimate NFL Pregame Show, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.